Welcome to the debate. Only AI-powered humans will stay relevant. Please drop a comment right now and share your initial reaction to that bold claim before we dive into today's discussion. We are looking at a massive transformation in how we work. We've officially moved past the idea of just automating boring spreadsheets. What we are really talking about today is the emergence of a deep, bidirectional symbiosis between human beings and artificial intelligence.
Exactly. And the central question we really have to grapple with, drawn from the latest academic and industry research, is whether future professional relevance actually demands this deep integration. Are we supposed to seamlessly merge our workflows with AI systems, or does this push toward total human-AI symbiosis actually invite a dangerous over-reliance? Does it degrade the uniquely human critical judgment we need to navigate the inherent limitations of these systems?
Well, my position is that deep human-AI integration, specifically achieving what researchers call a high person-AI bidirectional fit, is an absolute necessity. It is the only way forward for professional survival, superior decision-making, and relevance in the modern economy.
And my position is that blindly pursuing this level of symbiosis is incredibly risky. It threatens to create a workforce of what researchers call sleeping drivers, who over-rely on flawed systems. I argue that independent human criticality and maintaining foundational, non-automatable skills remain the true anchors of our value.
Let's start by looking at how the very paradigm of work has shifted. We aren't in a human versus machine world anymore. It's human augmented by machine. Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, captured this perfectly when he warned that workers won't lose their jobs to AI, but to someone who uses AI.
It's a striking quote, for sure.
It is, and it's backed by rigorous empirical data. Let's look at the recent Boston Consulting Group study. They observed over 750 elite management consultants. The researchers found that consultants who are augmented by AI completed 12.2% more tasks, did so 25.1% faster, and produced work that was 40% higher in quality than those who didn't use the tools.
Those numbers are undeniably impressive, yes. But how are they actually interacting with the AI to get those results?
That is the crucial part. The researchers categorized these successful AI users into two types, centaurs and cyborgs. A centaur divides the labor. They hand off a specific, well-defined task to the AI, almost like delegating to an intern, while they work on something else.
Right. A clear boundary.
Exactly. But the cyborg approach is where it gets fascinating. Cyborgs seamlessly integrate with the machine. It's a constant back and forth. The human starts a thought, the AI drafts a framework, the human tweaks it, the AI refines it. They are completely entangled. What we are seeing is that relevance now demands a high person-AI bidirectional fit, or PAI fit. The human adapts their cognitive approach to the AI's quirks, and the AI adapts to the human's preferences. It creates an emergent value that neither could achieve alone.
I certainly acknowledge the productivity gains highlighted in that BCG study. If you want to generate a market analysis faster, the AI is a powerful engine. However, the perspective I want to present is rooted in the inherent dangers of what the researchers call the jagged technological frontier.
The jagged frontier, let's break that down for the audience.
Imagine walking on a solid floor that suddenly, without any visual warning, turns into a trapdoor. That is the jagged frontier. AI is exceptionally good at highly complex tasks, but it fails in utterly unpredictable, sometimes baffling ways the moment it steps even slightly outside its core capabilities. This brings us to Fabrizio Dell'Acqua's research on the sleeping driver phenomenon.
Which is a very evocative term.
It perfectly describes the psychology of what's happening. In his studies, when humans started over-relying on high-quality AI for tasks that sat just outside the AI's actual competence frontier, their performance didn't just stagnate, it plummeted.
How far of a drop are we talking about?
We saw human accuracy drop from 84% down to 60 or 70%. And the reason is terrifyingly simple. People were blindly trusting convincing but entirely incorrect AI outputs. Think about a driver in a semi-autonomous car.
The car handles the highway perfectly for 2 hours. The driver gets comfortable, stops checking the mirrors, maybe checks their phone. When a uniquely complex situation arises, like construction cones placed in a weird pattern, the driver doesn't have the situational awareness to grab the wheel in time. They've fallen asleep at the wheel. Exactly. And my argument is that true professional relevance won't come from merging your mind with a machine like a cyborg. It comes from maintaining a sharp, critical distance. You have to be able to evaluate AI output objectively, especially since the general-purpose AI models most people use completely lack the vital ethical, historical, and organizational context required for complex decision-making.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective. If we look at where the broader labor market is undeniably heading, the cyborg workflow, that seamless back-and-forth co-creation, is becoming the definitive standard.
But is it a safe standard?
It's an inevitable one and a necessary one. Look at the World Economic Forum's 2025 Future of Jobs report. 77% of employers are actively prioritizing reskilling their workforce specifically for AI collaboration. This is not a fringe experiment happening in a few tech hubs. It's a global mandate. Employers recognize that soon, tasks will be nearly evenly divided between human, machine, and hybrid approaches.
Reskilling is one thing, but demanding deep entanglement is another.
But the entanglement is where the value is unlocked. To resist this deep integration, to insist on keeping AI at arm's length as just another external software application, is to invite professional obsolescence. In that same BCG study, the people using the cyborg approach didn't just hand off tasks. Their iterative co-creation drastically improved output. And perhaps most importantly, this integration has an incredible skill leveling effect.
Skill leveling, meaning it helps the lower performers more.
Exactly. Bottom performers improve their work quality by up to 43% when deeply integrated with AI. That is a structural shift in how human capital generates value. It lifts the entire floor of an organization's capability. But it requires deep, immersive collaboration, not treating the AI like a distant search engine.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. The pursuit of this so-called seamless cyborg workflow actively encourages the degradation of human skill. You mentioned the BCG study's success stories in the skill leveling, but we have to look at the flip side of that exact same experiment.
The tasks outside the frontier.
Yes. When those elite, highly trained management consultants were given a task specifically designed to be outside the AI's capability frontier, the ones acting as cyborgs failed at a much higher rate than those who didn't use the AI at all. They fell asleep at the wheel.
But couldn't you argue that's just a training issue? That we just need to teach people where the frontier is?
The problem is that the frontier is invisible and constantly shifting. If you are continuously co-creating with an AI, blurring the lines between your thinking and the machine's output, you eventually stop exercising independent cognitive effort. You lose the cognitive fitness required to spot the machine's hallucinations.
Because the AI is so articulate?
Incredibly articulate. It provides a deeply convincing, beautifully formatted, yet factually or logically flawed answer. And the human simply accepts it because they've offloaded their critical thinking. That is a massive systemic risk to any organization. The human is supposed to be the failsafe. If we push everyone to be cyborgs, deep integration neutralizes the failsafe.
I understand the concern about the failsafe, but that risk is exactly why we need deeper integration, not less. The sleeping driver problem occurs when humans are using generalized external tools that don't actually understand the user-specific context.
So the tool is the problem, not the human behavior.
It's the fit between the two. When we talk about true person-AI bidirectional fit, we are talking about systems that bridge that contextual gap. Let's examine the H3LX Isaiah proof-of-concept case study in management decision-making.
That's a fascinating study.
It really is. Let's break it down for the audience. They compared independent human executives, a standard general-purpose large language model, and an augmented human AI symbiotic system, which they called H3LAX, accessed through an interface called Liza. Think of this system not just as a chatbot, but almost as a digital twin of the CEO.
Right. It had access to a deep well of proprietary information.
Exactly. It had long-term access to the executive's personal history, their risk tolerance, and the organization's specific context. It literally formed a mirrored persona of the executive.
So the researchers gave this system a highly sensitive task, evaluating a slate of candidates for a senior AI lead role.
A role where ethics and trust are paramount.
Exactly. And there was a catch. One of the highly skilled candidates, let's call him Candidate G, had a documented history within the organization's past of eroding ethical trust. It wasn't something you'd find on a public resume.
A purely contextual red flag.
Precisely. And the symbiotic Phoenix-Liza system successfully disqualified Candidate G. Because of that high PAI fit, the machine mirrored the executive's tacit knowledge. It aligned its outputs with complex organizational values like loyalty and intellectual property hygiene. This isn't falling asleep at the wheel, it's giving the driver a co-pilot that actually understands the unwritten rules of the road.
That's a compelling argument. But have you considered what happens when we try to scale that concept to the broader workforce? I fully acknowledge the success of the Phoenix-Liza system in that highly controlled proof of concept. But we have to be realistic about the workplace today.
In what sense?
True augmented symbiosis with a persistent, personalized memory layer is incredibly rare and resource-intensive. Most of the workforce, from junior developers to marketing managers, does not have a bespoke symbiotic AI that has spent years internalizing their company's tacit knowledge.
They're using off-the-shelf tools.
Exactly. They are using general-purpose models. And in that exact same study you just cited, they tested the general-purpose model, the LLM. Do you know what it did? It completely failed.
Because it didn't have the context.
Right. Because it lacked contextual memory and historical reasoning traces. The general LLM ranked that ethically compromised high-risk candidate G as the absolute best person to hire. It relied entirely on the candidate's self-reported strengths on their resume.
It fell for the polished presentation.
Exactly. And this proves my point perfectly. If we push for mass AI integration right now and tell the global workforce to act like cyborgs using the general-purpose LLMs available today, we are inviting massive ethical and strategic false positives into our organizations. You cannot trust an AI with tacit organizational judgment if it doesn't have the context. Therefore, the human must maintain a critical, evaluative distance. You cannot mind meld with a machine that doesn't know your company's history.
I completely agree that general-purpose models have their limitations today, but we have to look at the trajectory. The technology is evolving so rapidly that the barrier to creating these advanced context-aware systems is dropping every single day. The definition of human capability itself is shifting away from manual execution and toward AI orchestration.
Orchestration is becoming the new buzzword.
But it's a reality. We are moving way past the era of writing a clever prompt. As industry experts are noting, traditional prompt engineering is essentially dead.
Did already?
Yes, because the future isn't about asking a chatbot a question. It's about managing multi-agent workflows. We are seeing workers transition from being prompt writers to system architects.
What does that actually look like in practice?
Let's take a software developer. Instead of asking an AI to write a single function, a developer deploys an agent that reads the entire code base, writes the function, generates the testing suite, and submits a pull request. Then, another autonomous AI agent reviews that code. The human's job is to orchestrate that entire flow.
Which requires a very different skill set.
A massively different one. McKinsey's latest data underscores this shift perfectly. They tracked a 7-fold increase in demand for AI fluency in job postings over just 2 years. It is the fastest growing skill requirement across almost every industry. We are talking about $2.9 trillion in economic value at stake in the U.S. alone by 2030. To capture that value, workers must evolve into orchestrators. The relevance is tied entirely to their ability to build, guide, and integrate these autonomous systems into their daily workflows.
I come at it from a different way. Let's look closely at that same McKinsey research, specifically their skill change index.
Okay, what does the index show?
Yes, the demand for AI fluency has spiked. No one is denying that. But the study also reveals something much more profound about human value. It shows that 72% of the skills sought by employers today are used in both automatable and non-automatable work.
Meaning they overlap.
Exactly. But here is the critical part. The skills with the absolute lowest exposure to automation, the ones that will endure and remain fundamentally human, are things like coaching, interpersonal conflict resolution, design thinking, and leadership.
The soft skills.
I prefer to call them foundational human skills. Furthermore, let's go back to your developer example. You say the human becomes an orchestrator of AI agents, but you cannot successfully be an orchestrator or evaluate an AI's code without possessing the deep underlying domain expertise that only comes from doing the work manually.
You're saying you need to build the house by hand before you can be the architect.
Exactly. How can a senior developer evaluate the security, scalability, and architectural trade-offs of an AI-generated pull request if they haven't spent years wrestling with those exact problems themselves? If we outsource all the foundational junior-level work to AI, we hollow out the very expertise required to orchestrate the AI later on.
That is the paradox of automation.
It is. AI literacy is vital, yes, but the data shows that the core human skills that exist safely outside the machine's capabilities are what ultimately anchor human value. A manager's role might shift toward orchestrating a hybrid workforce, sure, but the uniquely human elements of mentorship, building trust with a client, and applying moral judgment are what make them effective. It's not just their ability to string together AI agents.
But those uniquely human skills you just mentioned, the coaching, leadership, strategic design, those are precisely the things that deep AI symbiosis frees the human up to focus on.
If they haven't lost the capacity to do them by over-relying on the machine.
I don't believe they will. When we look at the totality of the evidence, from the BCG productivity metrics to the WEF reskilling data, it clearly points toward a co-evolutionary future. The paradigm of the cyborg, the pursuit of high-person AI fit, and the transition toward AI orchestration, these are not just passing trends or dangerous traps. They represent the new baseline for participating in the modern workforce.
A baseline that requires constant vigilance.
Vigilance, yes, but not resistance. By deeply integrating with AI and allowing it to handle the execution of complex, multi-step workflows, humans are actually elevated. They are liberated from the mundane. They can operate at higher levels of abstraction, focus on the strategic framing of problems, and apply that enduring emotional intelligence you value so highly. Augmented human-AI symbiosis isn't just about using a tool. It's about forming a partnership. Those who achieve this bidirectional fit will inherently outpace those who insist on treating AI as a distant, untrusted utility.
While I agree that AI is an unavoidable and powerful tool that can free up human capacity, the idea that total reliance and deep cognitive integration is the safest path forward remains a dangerous trap in my eyes.
Because of the sleeping driver risk?
Exactly. The evidence from the jagged technological frontier shows us that blindly trusting AI degrades our skills and introduces massive systemic risks into our organizations. Look at what happened with Candidate G when the context was missing. Human relevance will not ultimately be defined by how seamlessly we merge with machines. It will be defined by our ability to maintain the sharp critical distance required to identify the machine's inevitable blind spots.
To be the ultimate fail-safe.
Yes. We must protect our independent judgment, we must safeguard our ethical responsibilities, and we must cultivate the foundational domain expertise that allows us to evaluate AI outputs accurately. By maintaining a clear boundary, we ensure that we control the technology rather than allowing the technology to inadvertently control our thinking and our decision-making.
I think we can certainly agree that the nature of work is fundamentally changing, and that navigating this transition will require incredible adaptability from everyone. We clearly still disagree on whether deep, immersive symbiosis or maintaining a critical, evaluative distance is the safest and most effective path forward.
It is a delicate balance, and the stakes are incredibly high.
They really are. There is so much more depth to explore in the academic studies and reports we discussed today, from the BCG data to the H3LX proof of concept. We encourage all of our listeners to dive into the source material, form your own conclusions on this vital topic, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for joining us.